Right, so get this. We're diving deep into Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice today.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that one with the super famous opening line. It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Right. I love that line.
Yeah, and get ready to, jump back into all that drama and romance
Yeah.
and social satire, the things that just make this book a total classic.
Yeah. And it's amazing, right, how that single line just sets up like the whole story,
Yeah.
immediately we're just thrown into this world of like 19th century England
Totally.
where marriage like is practically the only way for a woman to be financially secure.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And nobody shows that better than Mrs. Bennet. I mean, she's got 5 daughters throughout the author. She is not subtle about
no,
that.
not at all. She's like a force of nature, just
Wow.
like constantly trying to find rich husbands for her daughters,
Right.
which is like hilarious, but also kind of sad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you think about it, it shows how few options women really had back then.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's through her daughters, especially Jane and Elizabeth, that
Yeah.
we really see all those complicated parts of like love and marriage playing out. Jane, the oldest, she's beautiful and kind and super quickly gets the attention of Mr. Bingley.
Oh, Mr. Bingley.
Right.
He's like the charming, wealthy bachelor, moves into their neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
He seems great on paper.
Yeah.
But then there's his friend, Mr. Darcy. That's a different story.
Well,
like, he's even richer than Bingley. But his pride, he's so aloof. It makes him seem, unapproachable.
Right.
Especially to someone like Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah. And their first encounter.
Mhm.
Like priceless. He makes these like kind of snide remarks about Elizabeth, and she overhears it.
Oh, no.
Right. Like talk about instant personality clash. And Elizabeth, she's smart, she's independent. She's not going to let him get away with that.
No way.
No.
And it's interesting because Darcy's behavior kind of shows us that theme of, like, class prejudice.
Oh, yeah.
That runs through the whole book.
Yeah.
He's judging the Bennet family because, they're not as high up socially, and their manners, let's just say, could be a bit more refined.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And then, boom, enters Mr. Wickham, this dashing militia officer who just sweeps Elizabeth off her feet.
Oh, Wickham. Classic Wickham.
Right, and he tells her this whole sob story about how terribly Darcy treated him.
Oh, no.
Which, of course, makes Elizabeth dislike Darcy even more.
No, he's good.
Yeah.
Like, he's a master manipulator. He plays on Elizabeth's sympathy, and her prejudice against Darcy. Basically, he's just poisoning her mind. And this is where, the prejudice part of Pride and Prejudice really kicks in.
Oh, totally. Like a classic case of first impressions being totally wrong.
Yeah.
And this leads us to one of the most dramatic moments in the book, Darcy's first proposal to Elizabeth.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right.
This is gonna be bad.
This does not go well.
Yeah.
Not only is Darcy like super arrogant about it, but he also brings up, that Elizabeth's family isn't as good as his.
Ouch.
Talk about adding insult to injury, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, Elizabeth, she's not having it. She basically throws the proposal back in his face. It's like so satisfying as a reader. You see Elizabeth like standing up for herself and calling out Darcy on his pride.
Oh, I bet. But what happens next is super important. Darcy doesn't just, like, sulk away. He writes Elizabeth a letter, and it changes everything between them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the letter, he exposes Wickham for the liar he is.
Oh, no.
And he defends his own actions, about Jane and Bingley. It gives Elizabeth a totally new perspective.
Like mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
It's where the pride starts to crumble. Elizabeth has to face like her own bad judgments and realize that her prejudice, it's blinded her to the truth about Darcy.
It's like this huge moment of self-awareness for Elizabeth, right?
Oh.
And it sets the stage for, even more drama when Lydia, the youngest Bennet sister, runs off with Wickham.
Oh my gosh, talk about a scandal. Like that could ruin the whole family's reputation.
Oh, no, it's total chaos.
Right. Mrs. Bennet's freaking out. The futures of all the Bennet sisters are like on the line. But this is where Darcy steps up and shows his true colors.
Oh, really? How so?
He jumps right in to help, works tirelessly behind the scenes to find Lydia and Wickham and make sure they get married, saving the Bennet family from social disaster.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is. And the thing is, he does all this without expecting anything in return. He doesn't even tell Elizabeth about it.
Wow. That's really selfless. It shows how much he truly cares for Elizabeth and her family, even if he doesn't, show it in the usual ways.
Exactly. It's this act of, like, redemption that changes everything.
Yeah.
Elizabeth finally sees past her prejudice and recognizes how great Darcy's character really is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, his honor, his integrity, all that stuff that was hidden under his, reserved exterior. And this brings us to this turning point in their relationship.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Right? Like things are thawing out. There's a little glimmer of hope for a love story that, a second ago seemed impossible.
Wow. It's amazing how Austen creates this tension and then slowly, unravels it.
Totally. It's like all those misunderstandings, the Pride and Prejudice are dissolving, making room for this, deeper connection built on, respect and understanding.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So stay tuned, because in the next part, we're going to dig into how all these tangled relationships get resolved
Okay.
and explore more of Austen's social commentary.
Sounds good. I'm ready. So we left off with, Lydia running off with Wickham and Darcy swooping in to save the day.
Oh, right. Yeah. What happens after that? I mean, how do they, get over all that Pride and Prejudice?
Well, first, everyone's kind of shocked, right? The news that Lydia's actually married to Wickham,
Oh.
and, Darcy pulled it all off.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bennet, though, she's over the moon. One of her daughters finally got a husband.
Yeah, right.
She's totally oblivious to, the scandal, the whole mess.
Oh, Mrs. Bennet.
But Elizabeth, she's floored.
Yeah, I bet. How does she react to, Darcy's involvement?
Imagine, right? The guy you thought was terrible, the one you judged so harshly, he's been secretly working to protect your family's honor.
Whoa.
It's a huge turning point for her. She sees Darcy completely differently now.
So does he, immediately propose again now that he's all heroic and everything?
Not so fast. There's still, a lot of awkwardness between them. And tension,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Plus, Bingley's back in town.
Mhm.
And he's still got the hots for Jane.
Oh, I love them.
They're so cute. Jane is just so sweet, and Bingley is clearly head over heels.
Yeah, but they're both so shy. It's, painful to watch.
I know. It's adorable. They need a little push,
Oh, I see where this is going.
And guess who steps in to play matchmaker?
Darcy.
Darcy. He encourages Bingley to, just go for it. Propose to Jane, finally gives their romance the happy ending it deserves.
That's great. So Darcy's, the love guru now, helps Bingley. What about himself?
He does propose to Elizabeth again.
Oh.
It's totally different this time.
I bet.
He's humble, sincere. He even admits he was arrogant before.
Wow. So is Elizabeth ready to, let go of her prejudice, see the real Darcy?
She is. She admits she was wrong about him, and she finally sees him for who he is. Honorable, kind, and totally in love with her.
That's beautiful.
It really is. When they accept each other, it's like the culmination of everything,
Right.
They've both grown so much, and now they truly understand each other.
It's such a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
But it's not just a love story, right?
Mm.
Austen's using this to, comment on society back then.
Absolutely. She's using satire,
Mhm.
showing us how absurd the whole marriage market was, the obsession with social status, all of it.
Right, right. Like Mrs. Bennet. She's obsessed with marrying off her daughters, but not even for love, really. It's all about money and social climbing.
Exactly. And then there's Mr. Collins, so pompous, awkwardly trying to woo Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a caricature of those social climbers,
Totally.
Status over genuine connection. Every time.
Ooh. And Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy's aunt. Talk about snobbery.
Oh, yeah, she's the worst. Thinks she can control who Darcy marries.
Just because of their social standing?
Exactly. It's brilliant how Austen uses these characters, right? Poking fun at the upper class, but also showing how trapped women were.
It's amazing how relevant it still is today. We're still dealing with societal pressures, gender roles, all that stuff.
I know. Austen was so sharp, so observant. Her take on human nature and society, it's timeless.
Pride and Prejudice isn't just a historical romance. It's about, breaking down those barriers.
Exactly. It's about love winning over social rules. Elizabeth and Darcy, they defy all that.
Their story shows that love should be about respect, understanding, looking beyond what society tells you to do.
Right. It's a message that still resonates with people today, to
Yeah.
question things, to value what's real, those genuine connections.
So we've seen the romance, the social commentary, the satire. Austen blends it all together so well, it makes you think, but it's also just a great story.
It really is. And the way she writes her style, it's part of why people love it so much.
Yeah, I agree. Her writing seems simple,
Mm,
but it's so elegant and witty.
exactly. And you feel like you're inside the characters' heads, You experience their thoughts and feelings right along with them.
Right. And her dialogue.
Yeah.
So sharp, so funny. It captures how people talked back then perfectly. Makes the characters feel so real.
Yeah, even hundreds of years later. And that's why Pride and Prejudice is still so popular. It's not just a period piece. It's about us,
Yeah.
about relationships, about growing as a person, about overcoming those internal barriers we all have.
It's both fun to read and makes you think.
And it's just beautifully written. You can't deny Austen's talent.
Well said. Well, that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive into Pride and Prejudice. So we've seen all the drama, the romance, the social stuff in Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Now I want to zoom out a bit,
Yeah.
What are the big takeaways? What makes this book so important?
Well, for me, one of the biggest things is challenging your own biases. You know how Elizabeth misjudged Wickham and Darcy? It's appearances can be deceiving. Don't judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Elizabeth's journey, how she grows, that's inspiring.
Right.
She learns to value character over money or status.
Totally. It reminds us that we can all learn and grow, become better versions of ourselves.
Another thing that sticks out is how important communication is. All those misunderstandings between Elizabeth and Darcy, they could have been avoided if they just talked to each other.
Exactly. And that letter Darcy writes, that's a game changer.
Right.
He's honest, vulnerable, makes Elizabeth see him in a whole new light.
Yeah, it shows how powerful it can be to just be open with someone. And let's not forget how Austen criticizes society.
Oh, yeah. She's brilliant at that.
The marriage market, the obsession with social status, it's all kind of ridiculous when you think about
And
it.
it's crazy how relevant it still is today.
Right. We're still dealing with those pressures, those expectations.
It's like Austen was writing about us, even though it was so long ago.
Pride and Prejudice is more than just a romance. It's a commentary on, human nature.
Yeah. And it's a testament to Austen's skill as a writer. Her plots, her characters, her wit. She's an icon for a reason.
And the book's influence, it's everywhere. Movies, TV shows, even modern retellings.
I know, it's been adapted so many times.
Shows you how timeless it is. The story just connects with people, no matter the time period or culture.
It's about those universal experiences, love, loss, societal pressures, the ups and downs of relationships.
Exactly. It's a classic for a reason. And it's just a fun read.
Oh, yeah. Austen's writing is so enjoyable. Makes you laugh, makes you think.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Pride and Prejudice, I encourage you to go read it again, or for the first time if you haven't already.
You won't regret it.
Yeah, you'll be hooked by Austen's wit, her characters, the whole thing.
And maybe, you'll start thinking about your own biases, your own prejudices.
That's a good point. How can we be more understanding and empathetic in our own relationships?
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey through Jane Austen's world.
It's been fun.
Until next time, happy reading, everyone.